Okay guys, I'm sorry for the delay on my Raw review for this week. But before I start on the Raw review, I have my next segment is going to have something. It kind of pertains to Money in the Bank from last year. It was something that was said by Michael Cole on the Super SmackDown that aired last Tuesday night on Sci-Fi. Okay, before I start this abortion of a Raw show, I want to get into something that happened on Super SmackDown last Tuesday night in that Money in the Bank qualifying match between Dolph Ziggler and Alex Riley. Michael Cole went on to say something about Alex Riley never been in Money in the Bank. Cole, he was in the Money in the Bank ladder match on the Raw side last year, you fucktard. Anyway, let's jump into this abortion of a Raw show now, shall we? So this week's Raw kicks off from Denver, Colorado with AJ. And the way she's been featured lately, it's no shock that she's in the opening segment. But anyway, she calls down CM Punk, and after talking to him for a few minutes about this, that, and the other thing, she gets down on one knee and proposes to him. And before CM Punk could give her an answer, out comes Bryan saying, "No! No! No!" And shortly after that, after Punk, or not Punk, but Daniel Bryan's talking to her for a little bit, he ends up getting down on one knee and proposes to her. Well, I think the only thing that would have made this funnier, hey, CM Punk didn't propose to anybody. Maybe he could have proposed to Bryan. Hell, they've been together long enough in the ring. It seems like they've been together every week, so it would be pretty funny. But anyway, this was a really long, drawn out segment. Oh, Jesus Christ. The only good thing about this segment was the return of the anonymous Raw general manager. I thought this was the best part of this segment. And Michael Cole having an epic fail trying to get the blanket off that computer. It ends up making the main event match between CM Punk and AJ versus Daniel Bryan and Eve. So, ugh. And what a really long, drawn-out opening segment. You would expect that the rest of the show would be rushed. And there's no better example of that than Sheamus against Jack Swagger. The match lasted about a minute, and Sheamus goes over with the brogue kick. ADR appears on the Titantron after the match, just basically talking shit, and then afterwards, Swagger eats another brogue kick for his trouble. Boy, Jack Swagger, you really hit rock bottom now, haven't you? Then you got Santino Holmes putting on his little Sherlock Holmes hat and his little fake pipe in his mouth and looking for the anonymous Raw GM. And he's back there with Zack Ryder. This would be a recurring theme throughout the night. Oh my God. And Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler just had to say that The Rock tweeted on Twitter Monday night saying he will be at the 1000th episode of Raw. Well, the way Raw's been lately, they're going to need all the fucking help they can get. Then you have a blink and you missed it tag team match between four of the members of the Money in the Bank match on the the SmackDown side. Christian and Tyson Kidd against Tensai and Dolph Ziggler. No entrances for anybody in this match, so kind of shows you their importance to this match. Tensai ends up going over on Christian after about 2 minutes of crap. Dolph Ziggler didn't even get in the match. Vicky Guerrero was sitting at ringside, or doing color with Cole and Lawler. And Tyson Kidd again gets attacked after the match. This time it wasn't Sakamoto because Tensai actually won. So, wow. Another rush segment. Then Jerry Lawler and Michael Cole have a argument about fuck, I don't even remember what it was. It was really not important, I guess. But Cole ends up spilling water on Lawler. Then the anonymous Raw GM clicks in saying, "Do you want to have a match? Do you want to see a match tonight on Raw between Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler?" The WWE.com poll. Oh my fucking god. God, wasn't it bad enough we had this at WrestleMania last year? And it was one of the longest matches on the card? Good lord. Next you had another squash between Brodus Clay and Drew McIntyre. You remember when Drew McIntyre was Mr. McMahon's chosen one? Neither do I. So then your 1 hour main event was Big Show and Chris Jericho versus John Cena and Kane. The 4 combatants in the Money in the Bank match on the Raw side. Wow, a 4-man Money in the Bank match with just WWE champions. Really? God. The match itself, I guess, wasn't all that bad. Cena had a promo before the match even started saying he's going to do 2 things. Big Show will be stopped by my hand. And I will do anything to win Money in the Bank. Well, I don't think he's going to have to do much because I think he's going to win it, personally. But be that as it may, Big Show gets disqualified, which means John Cena and Kane with the DQ finish. Afterwards, Cena ends up standing tall in the ring with holding a ladder up over his head. Gee, folks, think he's not winning Money in the Bank? Then next, you had one more Money in the Bank qualifying match on the SmackDown side with Sin Cara and Heath Slater, the Legend Jobber, which I will get to more in a minute. But anyway, match didn't really last that long. Sin Cara won over. I guess you have to have another spot monkey on the SmackDown side. But that wasn't the best part. Oh no, it wasn't. My mark out moment of the night was the return of one Mr. Bob Backlund. That's right, I said Mr. He's doing squats around the ring, and the crowd's still saying you still got it. I tell you what, him at 62, 63 years old is in shape. He's in better shape than most guys half his age, I tell you what. But this was my highlight of the night for sure. Slater gets put in the crossface chicken wing. Ooh, that best segment of the night, by far. But then, after that match, Mr. Bob Backlund gets cut off by that douchebag Michael Cole. You just had to interrupt him in his moment, didn't you? With the poll results of, do you want to see Michael Cole against Jerry Lawler? And predictably, the WWE Universe went 75-25 in favor. Really? Wasn't it bad enough you had to pay for it at WrestleMania? Oh, Jesus. Absolutely terrible. So then they had the match and it lasted about a minute. It was absolute shit. And then, if that wasn't bad enough, we finally got a payoff after about 2 years of who the anonymous Raw GM really was. It was freaking Hornswoggle, the little troll. Really? God, was that the best you could do, WWE? It was to make Hornswoggle the anonymous Raw general manager? God. That's the payoff we get for this. I mean, God, I can remember when this was a pretty good angle at one time. And that's the payoff we get, is to have freaking Hornswoggle? Good God almighty. And then we came up to the main event. Well, if you want to call it that. Because the the main event was only about 4 or 5 minutes long. And predictably, AJ goes over on Eve. And this is Eve's hometown, Denver, Colorado. And they're just making AJ. They're making AJ Lee seem more important than the WWE title at this point. And she gets her answer from Punk about the marriage proposal, and he says he won't marry her. So AJ ends up slapping him, and then Daniel Bryan saying, "Come home, AJ, come home," and so AJ ends up slapping him, and for the second week in a row, AJ Lee is the last thing you see on Raw. Boy, God, I tell you what, God, when this stuff goes to 3 hours in 2 weeks, I tell you what, the 1000th episode, they better fucking knock it out of the park, because this show was pretty much unwatchable this week. I mean, seriously. Final thoughts in the show was, outside of seeing one Mr. Bob Backlund, that's Mr. to you, this show sucked absolute donkey balls. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, yeah, when your opening segment has 2 marriage proposals in it, not that I'm against marriage or anything, but I mean, God, there's got to be some kind of payoff for this on Sunday between AJ and Punk and Bryan and that kind of thing. And the 1 hour main event between Cena and Kane and Big Show and Jericho, with Cena holding the ladder over his head, and it's like they really have not given you any reason to think that Cena's not going to win Money in the Bank on the Raw side. And you only had 4 of the guys from the SmackDown side in a match, like in a tag team match, which lasted about 2 minutes. And the whole first hour was rushed, I thought, especially when your opening segment goes about 20 minutes. You would have thought God himself was in the opening segment, but anyway, in 2 hours we're gonna be subjected to 3 hours of this shit. The 1000th episode better be one for the record books, because otherwise this show is going to become pretty much unwatchable, and it pretty well is already. And I feel for the Denver. I really felt sorry for the Pepsi Center crowd in Denver, because they had, not only did they have to sit through Raw, they had to sit through SmackDown as well. Anyway, God, I don't think I can take 3 hours of this shit, I tell you that much.